Hey BookTube! My name is the Book Mage if you're new here, and if you're not, then welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freak out tag, which is a long title. I wasn't actually planning on doing this tag because I've only read like 20 books in the year so far, and there's like 15 questions or something. So I'm going to be like hard pressed to find answers and also not just talk about the same books over and over again. But like everyone else is doing this tag and like it's actually a current relevant tag for me to join in on. So I'm just going to do it anyway, even if I sound like a broken record by the end of this video, most likely. So the first question in the tag is the best book you've read so far in 2019. I think I'm going to go with An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. Yeah, don't ask what happened to my copy. I'm not sure this is like objectively the best book I've read this year, but it is the one that I enjoyed reading the most, and I think this is currently my highest rated book of the year. So yeah, at least this one was an easy enough answer for me. Question 2 is the best sequel you've read so far this year. And for me, this is a nice easy answer. This is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I haven't read many sequels this year. I think the only sequels I've read this year are the Throne of Glass series and then all of the Grisha books. So like yeah, this was a pretty easy choice for me. This is also actually my second highest rated book so far this year. So question 3 is, what is a new release that you haven't read yet but that you really want to? And I think for me this is The Gutter Prayer by Gareth Hanrahan. This came out I believe in January of this year, so it's still pretty new. And yeah, this is one of the books that I'm most excited to get to this year. I'm hoping it's going to be a 5-star read. Like I've predicted, it's probably going to be a 5-star read for me, so I really need to read this book. I'm very excited to read this one. Question 4 is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And for me, this has to be Dark Dawn. And I still, as I film this, I still have not read Nevernight or God's Grave, but I am reading them this month, so I'm super excited to read them, and I've already pre-ordered Dark Dawn. Like, I'm sure I'm going to love the series, and I am just very, very excited to have that book. And not just because it has a really cute cat on the front. Like, how many fantasy books even have adorable cats on the front of them? There need to be more. Question 5 is, what was your biggest disappointment? And this is actually a question for which I had multiple answers, and it was really hard to pick which book I was most disappointed by. And like obviously I could just rag on The Bone Witch again because I hated that book and that was my most hated book of this year, but I think specifically for most disappointing, I am going to call out The Fate of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. This is the third and final novel in the Queen of the Tearling trilogy, and I went into this book with mixed expectations. I had loved the first book, I had hated the second book, and like I wasn't expecting much out of this book. I was expecting it to be maybe mediocre, but I was hoping that it would be good and not as crap as the second novel. And what I found was that the book improved so much from the second book, and then the ending was so bad that like I still haven't gotten over just how horribly dissatisfying and disappointing the ending was. And so I think the reason I've picked specifically this book is because reading all the way up until basically the last chapter, I was still on board for this to be a good book, and then the final chapter just completely destroyed all my hopes and dreams and left me so utterly disappointed in the resolution of this whole series that yeah, this is just possibly one of the most disappointing books I've ever read. Specifically for that reason. Question 6 is biggest surprise of the year, and this is kind of a tough one because like I don't think any books have really surprised me that much this year. But the one I'm going to end up picking for this question is Want by Cindy Pon. And the reason I've picked this is because it wasn't that surprising, but it was surprising in the sense that like I kind of expected it to be a 3-star, and it was like a 3-star read for me, but I did still enjoy it more than I thought I would. And I think the surprising aspect is that like I read this just for the Asian readathon, and I didn't think I would want to pick up the sequel or anything like that, but I am actually thinking about picking up the sequel because I enjoyed the characters, and while it is like it's a story for a much younger reader and it's a little bit basic, but I actually still did really enjoy the story. I quite like the way that Cindy Pon writes and invents her characters, so I think I probably am going to pick up the sequel to this at some point, which is surprising because I had absolutely no intention of that, and I basically just read this for a readathon. Can you even see the book up there? Question 7 is your favourite new author, so either a debut or someone that's just new to you. And considering I've been in like a hideous reading slump for a few years prior to making this booktube channel, basically every author that I'm reading now I'm catching up, and so they are all new authors to me. But I think I'm going to give this one to Samantha Shannon, who is the author of The Priory of the Orange Tree. I love this book, and this was one of my highest rated books of the year, but specifically it wasn't just like the fact that this is a feminist high fantasy story with dragons, which again is amazing. The thing I liked most about this book was actually just the way that Samantha Shannon writes, just her choice of words and phrasing, and just the way that she actually strings together sentences. I really enjoyed the actual prose on the page the most out of any new author that I've read this year. And yeah, that's why I'm picking Samantha Shannon. Question 8 is newest fictional crush, and I've heard a few other people say the same, but like I don't really get fictional crushes, like at least not really for books. Like there are occasional characters that I tend to like and you could call like a crush, but like I don't like actually crush on book characters, I guess. But yeah, I don't know, maybe it's because like most characters are just not in my age range, I don't know. Like 90% of the time if I'm reading like a YA fantasy, I'm just kind of I'm reading a book and I'm like, who are all these children and where are all the adults? But yeah, I think it's probably just the fact that I don't tend to crush, I guess, on fictional characters. I mean, I'll let you know if that changes. But yeah, I don't really have an answer for this one. Question 9 is newest favourite character, and I may be jumping the gun just a little bit on this one, but I am picking Lupe de Cazaril, who is the main character of The Curse of Chalian by Lois McMaster Bujold. Cazaril is like, he's just a real sad old man, which immediately ticks a whole lot of boxes for me. I don't know why sad old men are like my favourite characters, but they just are. It's like, you can keep your bad boys. I just want the sad dads. So Cazaril is essentially, he used to be like a, I'm not sure whether like general or officer, or he was like a high-ranking military person, and through some pretty underhanded dealings he ended up being sold into slavery for the enemy for a few years, and he's only just come back to his homeland and to the castle where he used to work as a page when he was a boy. And even though he's middle-aged, he seems a bit older than he is because he's been worn down and like his body's a bit broken, and honestly he just seems like such a nice guy. He just seems like he wants to sit down in a nice corner, maybe with a book and a cup of tea, and just like live a real quiet life, and he's not going to be allowed to do that. He's just so sweet, and I'm literally only like 100 pages ish into this book and I just really love him already. Like, I'm constantly smiling when I read this book because he's just the perfect kind of character that I just really love and get on board with. Like, I am 100% on this guy's team, like just right from page 1. I think it's just because he reminds me of one of my own characters called Guillaume, who is actually one of my Skyrim characters. But yeah, I've written like a lot of like semi-original stories to do with that character, and he's basically exactly the same as Cazaril almost. It's scarily similar. So yeah, he kind of reminds me of my own really unfortunate sad old man character who I dearly love. The only unfortunate thing about this is I feel like this is a fairly popular fantasy, but it's quite an old one, so like nobody talks about it anymore, and I don't know anyone that really reads this anymore. And I'm like, how do I reignite a fandom for a character that no one has talked about in near 20 years? Like, how do I bring it back? So question 10 is a book that made you cry, and again, I hate to disappoint you, but books kind of don't make me cry. Kind of nothing does. I'm kind of dead inside. Like, I can tell when a book is trying to be sad. I can tell when something is sad. I just don't feel the sadness. I just don't usually feel the connection. So yeah, 0 books have made me cry. I think maybe ever. Question 11 is a book that made you happy, and sadly, again with the last one, I don't tend to feel a whole lot when reading books, and I don't just want to name The Curse of Chalian again because I do feel very happy when I read that, but I think the other book that maybe has made me at least smile a lot is 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. There's just like some fun banter in this. There's just some like funny witty lines in this, and I do quite like the characters. They're much more fleshed out in the second one, but I've already mentioned Crooked Kingdom, so like I can't do it again. But yeah, I definitely remember I enjoyed reading this quite a lot. It's one of my highest rated books from this year, and I definitely remember like just some of the funny interactions between the main characters. I'm sure they at least definitely made me smile, so that counts as making me happy, so I'm picking this book. Question 12 is, what is the most beautiful book you've bought this year? And this is such a hard question because I just did a huge book haul with like a whole bunch of really beautiful books. And the funny thing is, I know that the actual most beautiful book that I've bought this year, it isn't published yet, so I can't show you it because I don't technically have it, so I can't pick the actual real option because it's not out yet. So I'm kind of stuck between two, and I'm just going to cheat and show you both because, like, I'm sure you want to see two beautiful books. The first is The Binding by Bridget Collins, because absolutely just look at the spine. Like, this book is so gorgeous. And the true magic, like, even the end paper is beautiful, but the true magic is under the dust jacket, because look at this book. It's just gorgeous. But I kind of also want to say the illustrated edition of A Game of Thrones, because again, like, look at this. It's so pretty, it's so fantastic. And again, the spine and like the back and like the map, and it's illustrated, which like counts as severely beautiful. And the final question, question number 13, is what books do I really need to read by the end of the year? All of them, I guess. Specifically, I'm going to pick out The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, and Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. So yeah, I think these three are like the three that I'm kind of most excited for and that I really want to read, especially because like they all have sequels. Like there's so many more books that come after these. I have so many books to read. So that was it for my mid-year book freakout tag. I think I'm definitely freaking out. Just a little bit. But yeah, if you've done this tag, you can totally feel free to let me know in the comments down below so I can come along and watch your video. Because like, I'm interested to see what other people are freaking out about. Is anyone freaking out about the same stuff as me? Is anyone freaking out about Casserole, or is it just me? I think it's just me. So yeah, with that said, that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in another video. Until then, peace out, BookTube!